Canik first started turning heads with their TP9 series of pistols. It was a pistol at a modest price with an amazing trigger. Fast forward and they introduced the TP9 SFX pistol, which I've previously reviewed, and it took on the same formula and anointed it with a competition shooting veneer, stretching the barrel out to 5.2 inches and giving it a fiber optic sight. Canik picked up Frank Xu and Nils Jonasson as team shooters, and those two helped refine the design even further with the Canik Rival. So did they continue to build momentum, or did they simply lay up? Are you ready? Stand by. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel. I'm David and this is the Canik Rival SFX. So a lot of you have been asking about this pistol. This is actually one of the first production runs that has been available in the US. I bought this with my own money, paying full MSRP in the first quarter of 2022 at $679. I'm not cool enough to get the pre-launch ones to have media when the pistols drop, so you'll just have to accept this. It's worth at least what you paid for it, right? But that sets us up with a big thank you to my patron supporters over on Patreon. Videos like this are thanks in large part to the support I receive over on Patreon. So if you enjoy these kinds of videos, you could have already seen my unboxing tabletop review of this pistol if you were a member over on Patreon. And possibly the biggest favor you could do me is to subscribe to the channel. About 75% of my views come from unsubscribed viewers. So if you could subscribe to the channel and help me get my silver play button in 2022, you would really help me meet a personal goal and I would be very thankful. And of course, we have to talk to our dear friends over at YouTube who are manually reviewing this video because all the videos are demonetized that I upload, whether they have guns in them or not. Yes, they're making pistols that come gray with gold bits on them from the factory now, as evidenced by this picture from the manufacturer's website. This gun is totally unmodified and I'm not promoting the sale of any prohibited firearms. This is the most advertiser-friendly content you're going to see short of a puppy pile. So the Canik SFX originally captured a lot of people's attention, and the Rival is the next logical conclusion to where the gun would evolve to. While the SFX was generally pretty great, and I have reviewed the gun previously on this channel, I had one of the very earliest guns that had some of the issues that Canik has fought through and are no longer issues anymore, but all of the guns now are totally top shelf, and this gun is no different. So why did Canik update their formula? Well, Nils and Frank have been working with Canik for the past 3 years or so, giving them feedback on all of the small things that matter to competitive shooters and the regular general interest market would appreciate at large to make the SFX a more competitive gun. Most notably, it is a 5-inch gun, which makes this gun competitive in basically all of the 9mm pistol competitions across the world. So the divisions this gun is meant to be shot in IDPA, that's going to be SSP, ESP, and carry optics. In USPSA, it's going to be production limited in carry optics, and in IPSC, it's going to be good to go in production standard and production optics. So the features that they give you on this gun really support competitive shooters, but they'll be appreciated by anybody who likes picking up guns that are easy to shoot and appreciate quality. Before we dive in and start looking at all the refinements of it, here's your first chance to comment. What guns would you like to see me compare the Rival to? And additionally, I did a recent live stream and podcast with Phil Strader from Sig Sauer. If you'd like to see one with Nils and Frank from Canik, let me know in the comments below. So diving in and talking about the frames of the Canik pistol. The frame is the same frame that's on the Canik Mete, which is to say it's a significant upgrade from the old SFX frames. The gun sits much lower in your hand due to a revised beaver tail and a revised trigger guard with a double undercut. The texture that they've managed to put on the gun is sort of a fine fissure. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that this isn't my favorite texture because a fine fissure, what happens when you handle a gun a lot is it starts to take dead skin off your hands and the grime from the range make their way onto the grip. So once those fine fissure textures fill in, the guns can become slippery. But in the gun store, you're going to pick it up and be like, that feels pretty good. That's like a medium aggressive maybe. And yeah, it's all right. And the biggest failing of this gun, well, there's one other one, but one of the biggest failings in the design of the grip, I should say, is the fact that the stippling stops right at the mag catch. So if I flip it around, you can see the stippling stops at the mag catch rather than extending all the way up to just underneath the slide stop. Why that's important is when you build a neutral thumbs forward grip on the gun, this part of your thumb resists the turning motion of the gun in recoil, and you've given up all the traction for the scoop to get at the mag catch. So it's a very smooth part of the frame, and it would benefit from having the traction run up higher on the frame. That's a very modest criticism because most pistols that this is competing with have the same feature. That's what makes things like the PDP and the SIG P320 AXG frame stand out, is the traction goes basically up to the slide. And that's a big feature in controlling recoil. So that scathing criticism out of the way, the actual ergonomics of the frame are quite good. It is very much kind of a rectangle. It's not as blocky as like a Glock, but when you put a grip on it, you will absolutely feel the fact that it is very rectangular. The back strap is changed from the old SFX frame, so they're not interchangeable, but it does come with a magwell, and if you get the gray one, I guess that's what they call it. They call the black one the dark side, and I guess this is just like the gray one. It's gray, that's the premium feature. The black ones come with an extra mounting optic that has a backup sights for a RMR type plate. The gray ones are just gray with these gold bits on them, so it's kind of like, I don't know, a gray suit with some gold chains, I don't know. Because competition shooters really like gray suits with gold chains, apparently. Super serious. So in the little baby pistol that comes in the case, there are a bunch of screws and 2 additional mag buttons so that you can absolutely tune up the mag release button to be the height that you would prefer. So if you're left-handed, it switches to the opposite side. And if you have like a really weird grip that makes you drop magazines for no reason, you can use the small one. Or if you've got short thumbs, you can use the long one. They've got you covered. And a quick shout out to my lefties. You guys are only 10 to 12% of the population, but I feel like in the comment section, you whine way more than that. I know you guys are just in it for the attention. You're not really left-handed. I understand that, but you can pretend to be left-handed and use the controls on the right side of the pistol to spin the slide back into batteries. So the world is your oyster if you are a left-handed shooter. Takedown on the frame is accomplished via the 2 tabs, very much like a Glock, where you pull the gun slightly out of battery, pull the tabs down, pull the trigger, and the slide comes off. Always, when you're field stripping a gun, verify there's no rounds in the chamber, boys. So that's the frame. I actually quite like the Canik frame. It's done very, very well. That's going to take us up to the slide, and that's where things get really interesting, because the slide on the Canik Rival has shored up the weakest point of the Canik design and really made this gun sing as a competition gun to where I would recommend this over pretty much any of the previous Canik pistols. The most important thing that they did, competitive shooters will manipulate slides from in front of the ejection port because it's a faster way to clear malfunctions, and if you have an optic mounted on the rear of your gun, which most of us do at this point, then generally speaking you can't get at the rear serration, so people will rack off the front. The front serrations are absolutely excellent. The rear serrations are actually kind of weak. They are not at all in the same ballpark as the front serrations, which are like super grippy. But I love those front serrations so much, and as far as I'm concerned, they're really the only ones that matter. The front serrations are done beautifully, beautifully well. So that's a really big thing to competitive shooters, and that's done very well on this pistol. The next big thing is if you're an iron sight shooter, the sights that they provide on this pistol are absolutely fantastic. These are machined as cleanly as my absolute favorite sights, which are Dawson Precision sights made right here in Texas. There is a fiber optic front and an adjustable target rear. I managed to drop the slide from waist height when taking it apart, and the rear sight held up. It held 0 just fine, so the sight is quite robust. Adjustable sights are great for competitive shooters because if you change your projectile weight, it will generally hit a little bit different, so it allows you to account for that. But more important than that is Canik gets it. This is the carry optics age, and they do it correctly by giving you plates to mount optics on your gun right out of the box. Not only do they give you plates, the plates are excellently made. They're made out of aluminum with steel helicoil inserts to screw the screws into. So they're keeping weight down on the slide, the moving part, and they're giving you better material for the screws to bite into. But also the machining on those plates has a male-female relationship to the slide, which takes stress off the fasteners and allows you to keep an optic on the pistol for a long time. Now all those plates are still drilled and tapped on the side for a slide racker, which puts you into open division or disqualifies you in IDPA. So don't use the slide racker if you're serious about competing, but if you're somebody who has a hard time grabbing the slide to manipulate it, then you can put the slide racker on and manipulate the slide. And a couple more things about the upper assembly is the barrel has flutes on it. I don't know why, because you want the barrels on a competitive gun to be as heavy as possible because it's non-reciprocating mass. They more than redeem themselves for that odd design choice because the guide rod is actually quite heavy. It weighs about 1.5 ounces, which is a very heavy guide rod. Most recoil assemblies are like half of that. So there is a little bit of weight to the guide rod, and it is a premium feature. Getting into the trigger, and that's what you guys are here. It's got this beautiful aluminum trigger shoe with a very broad face with a knurled tactile trigger dingus, and it is an absolutely great trigger. Now previously I've said the Mete has the best striker fired trigger on the market, and this actually one-ups the Mete. The Mete has gobs and gobs and gobs of pre-travel, whereas this gun, if you see, like, while that's not as short as the Freedom Smith we looked at in our old SFT, it's probably a better safe trigger than what the Freedom Smith was, which is probably the ragged edge of safety, I would guess. I don't know, I'm not an engineer. But for an off-the-shelf gun, the trigger is very well optimized for competition shooting. Out of the box, there is going to be a micro amount of creep. And what I mean is when you pull the trigger and get to that wall, there's going to be a tiny little bit of give before the trigger releases. That's completely academic, and it's not a liability on the range. And as you continue to shoot the gun, the trigger will continue to improve as the parts are fire fit together. The pull weight on this example, now competitive shooters are about to say, why is it so heavy? And all you general interest guys can be like, that's pretty light. And the quality of the trigger, I'll just say, is absolutely sufficient. It is 4¼ pounds on this model based on 3 pulls from the center of the trigger. 4¼ pounds, I'm guessing it's gonna lighten up as the gun continues to be shot and drop down to being just underneath 4. So you competition shooters, you know what you need to do to get trigger pull weights down if that's your bag. Otherwise, it's a completely safe trigger that they've provided with the Rival, and I would say honestly completely adequate for competition. And that's going to bring us to talking about how the gun shoots. Now, you've watched a lot of videos on YouTube. Almost all of the reviewers here on YouTube do not shoot competition, yet they review competition pistols. I am a competitive shooter in both IDPA and USPSA, so I took this to my local IDPA match, and I can say absolutely this gun is fantastic for shooting competitions. The recoil impulse of the gun is super manageable with factory loaded 9mm. With light loads, it's still throwing out brass just like you would want. So as a competition gun is concerned, the recoil and the return to zero based on the enhanced frame is very, very good. Now Nils, who I mentioned earlier, actually came in second in last year's Race Gun Nationals shooting a Mete frame with his SFX upper. What that effectively makes is a rival. So in limited division where only 2011s in 40 can be competitive, he came in second at like 99% shooting a 9mm gun that cost less than $1,000. So all of that to say is the gun is incredibly capable if you are. Accuracy's fantastic. The gun is telepathic, and the super predictable trigger makes tight shots very, very easy. Before we go any further in the video, if you've made it with me this far and you're not subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you are subscribed, hit the like button. I really appreciate it. Now diving into the aftermarket, which is very important for the Canik. Now this Canik comes with so much value in the case, it's almost as if the aftermarket doesn't matter. And here comes that other big negative that we hinted at way earlier at the beginning of the video. The biggest negative about this pistol is you can't get magazines for it. Now this gun ships with 2 magazines in the box, which is not enough magazines to compete in any pistol competition. In IDPA you're going to need 3, and in USPSA you're going to need, depending on the division you shoot, we'll just say 4. You need 4 magazines. They give you 2 in this box, and it's really hard to find extras. You can take magazines from other brands and kind of make them work if you've got the Dremel and the time, but it's kind of a problem. Now I talked with the guys over at Canik. They're telling me that by second quarter the magazine thing should be cleared up. It's an issue with global shipping containers and COVID lockdowns and all that stuff. They use very good magazines. Now these are Mechgar tubes made in Italy, and they don't just leave it there. They actually give you 2 aluminum base pads. So you can see there's a little bit of magazine sticking out of the magwell for you to seat on. The plastic ones go flush in the magwell. They still work in the magwell, but they don't stick out just a little bit. And this gun is designed to fit in the box for IDPA or IPSC or USPSA. So even with the base pads on, you're good to go. So in the box, you're getting 2 aluminum base pads to put on your magazines, which is a premium feature. You're also getting this holster, which on the silver gun is silver, which is kind of obnoxious because who has silver holsters? And the answer now is me. I have a silver holster, but it appears to be drilled on the Blade Tech pattern. So if I didn't want to use the belt mount it's provided with, I could hang it off my holster hanger that I would use in USPSA. So that looks pretty cool. So you can compete with the gun pretty much straight out of the box, provided you've already got magazines. The trigger, as mentioned, is pretty doggone good out of the box. If you absolutely have to get the most out of it, you can look at doing springs or something like that, and those are already out because of the old guns. You don't need to touch the sights. The sights are brilliant. They give you all the optics plates you could want, and they give you the option for buying the optics plates for all the oddball optics if you're a weirdo. Pretty much all the big dogs are making Canik SFX holsters, so there's plenty of holster support already baked in if you don't like the silver holster your gun comes with. And I spoke with Frank over at Canik about the optics plates. The Romeo 3 or the RTS plate will work with any of the optics that fit on that footprint. So previously some guns have had issues with the longer optics that extend well towards the ejection port. All those optics are going to work just fine on the Rival, so I'm told. And that's going to bring us to our conclusion on the Canik Rival. A lot of other gun companies have released competition models and all they did was make the slide longer. They didn't give you any more features, but Canik has actually done exactly what competitive shooters would want done to the pistols on the Rival. They give you really good optics plates, they give you really good iron sights, they give you aluminum base pads, they give you a magwell that goes on the frame, and they give you a holster that mounts on all of the holster hangers that you already have. I think. I was too lazy to actually pull it off, but just eyeballing it, it looks like the Blade Tech pattern, I swear, guys. And all of that for an MSRP of only $679. I would bet after this gun's been out for a while and you can find more of them in the wild that the street price is going to drop, being closer to that $600 price point. And at that price point, it basically is head and shoulders above any of the other values there, based on what you're paying for versus what you're getting. Since Canik's not chasing a bunch of the mill contracts here in the United States, they're really just trying to make a gun that civilians will want to shoot and get the most out of, and that's exactly what they've done with the Rival. It's really squared away for competitive shooting. Now, what it's not going to do is make you a better shooter, so if you're not dry firing and practicing and doing all the stuff that actually builds skill, you can't buy your way off the plateau that you're already on. You have to at some point fix the fundamentals that's holding you back. You can't just buy gear and get better results. While this pistol is going to make it significantly easier to mask those flaws in your fundamentals, eventually you will need to address them. So with that all said, the Rival's a fantastic pistol. So if you're on a budget and looking to compete, this is probably heading up the list of my recommendations for a pistol that can do everything you need it to do and is of sufficient quality straight out of the box. Like, this thing punches way over its weight, and it's a great gun. Like, it's not a great gun for a price, it's just a great gun, period. So with that said, let me know your experience of Caniks in the comments below, and let me know what you'd like to see this compared to. I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.